You know what time it is.
What's up, beer people?
If you heard it on the hashtag beer town, it's true.
It must be true.
It's true. It is fact. Please, won't you name one of your beers Cart Horse?
And just do something terrible. Just brew a shit beer.
Stick your finger in there every now and again.
Stir it with a sock.
Every show, it feels like my first show.
Every show is a new adventure.
Did I make sense there? I think I did.
I love them all.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I hope you've missed me. I've missed you. We've had a nice little break over the festive season, and we're back into the swing of things. My guest on this podcast is Wolfgang Kudel from CBC. I don't think he needs a big introduction, but for those of you who don't know, he is the head brewer of CBC. He's pretty much the face of CBC, and we had this chat towards the end of last year, but it was a chat that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. We got to chat about his background. We talked quite a little bit about malt and the importance of it. We don't spend too much time on the technical stuff. We just go through the South African craft beer scene at the moment, new beers, fruity beers, anything new that CBC has on the markets, and his thoughts on where we are heading. So it's a great show. I really enjoyed chatting to him one-on-one. The food and snacks that he brought were pretty epic. But I'll let you just take my word for it. Guys, we'll get into the show now. I hope you enjoy it. Cheers. Bye.
Oh, we've got a lot lined up for you today. We've got a good show, in fact. I'm going to get straight into introducing our guest. I feel he needs a little introduction, but I'm sure there are some of you out there who don't know much about the craft beer scene. He's the head brewer at CBC Cape Brewing Company. I'd like to welcome Wolfgang Kudel. Wolfgang, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You sound perfect in that microphone. It's good. Wolfgang, it's customary on the show, before we do anything, to open a beer. So if you'd like to take the honors, you've brought us the Cape Brewing Company lager, and I noticed it's got a bit of a yellow sticker there, but while you're pouring the beer, tell us a bit about the beer.
Yeah, look, lager is still, from a brewer perspective, the most difficult beer to brew. You really can't hide anything. And it made us even more proud when our lager won a gold medal at Meininger in Germany, and but also in South Africa. So it won a couple of prizes, which means not a lot to a lot of people, but I think it just shows we can compete international with our beers on that platform.
Great recognition. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers. Great to be here.
It's great to have you here. Now, for those people who are listening, they might have noted that you have a bit of a different accent. You're not local. Maybe you could just tell the people where, in fact, you're from.
All right. I was born actually in Bayreuth, in Franconia, in Bavaria, and after high school, I wanted to study chemistry, but my father had actually different plans for me. He signed me up for apprenticeship in the brewery because every month he got
smart man.
Got 140 liters of beers for free, and that's how my brewing career actually started. And then obviously I studied. And
sorry to interrupt. What did your parents do?
My mother was a housewife, and my father was a carpenter. I would love to say since 9 generations master brewer. But, I think we've been since 9 generations beer drinkers and lovers.
That's fine. So go on. And then after your apprenticeship?
I studied, and I worked for 2 years as a maltster, which is sometimes in a lot of studying a little bit neglected. So I want to really be 100% sure what and how malt is made. And we also had 3 breweries. And then I joined Paulaner Munich, one of the largest breweries in Germany. but only under that condition that I can start opening microbreweries worldwide. I didn't felt really so much the commercial side, working in a big brewery, having our own office and sitting there every day. I think that's not me.
Yeah, that's good. I want to touch on, we're going to bounce around the show quite a bit, as I said to you off air, but the one thing what my ears perked up there was malting. And I think being a maltster or the art of malting is definitely underestimated in the beer sense or beer making sense, especially in the homebrewing community. I mean, as a homebrewer, people just expect the malts just to arrive in a bag. But there's definitely an art to it. What did you learn as a maltster?
What I learned that malt, yeah, sure, it is the ingredients you need most in the beer as a starch source or a sugar source. Look, it is so important that I even import our personal malt, and anyhow it's a specialty malt from Germany. So at any time I have 2 25 tons container on the Atlantic shipping to Africa, and there's a new guy on the block, which is actually Chris with Waltz Malt. They have a little malting plant is it in Belleville, around there?
I think it's Brackpan or somewhere around there, but I've also heard of that. Is that up and operational now?
That is operational, and we also got some malt from them, testing it, and all looks good. I think a lot of other craft brewers already also getting malt from them. Sure, they are still SAB, the malting plant in Caledon, which is the other option.
Sure, I mean, but that's great news. It shows just where our industry is going and where it's been. You get in guys now who not just making beer and getting from the stock standard single place. There are now other options for people to get malt. And I understand there's also a gentleman in Cape Town who's cultivating yeasts. I don't know if you've seen that or used it. I know that Sean and Greg from Afro-Caribbean Brewing Company, they've started using that in their beer, and they say it's great. So that it's good to see the market now growing, and we get in more options, just not in terms of beers on the market, but also options for brewers
on ingredients and raw materials. Yeah.
So you said you get all your malts from Germany. And yeah, so you definitely think that ingredients plays a major role in what you put into your beer.
Sure, but what you put in, you get out.
Exactly.
We all know that. So it's better your ingredients, and that's the reason a lot of craft brewers tend to blend their malt. So you have the good of every malt you can use, but there's definitely a price tag on it if you import high quality malt, and I use Weyermann malt because it has a huge variety, and I used to work with it since nearly 30 years.
Yes.
So I know the family. I know I see them every year in Nuremberg or in Munich, and I visit the plant in Bamberg every year. So it is a little bit more than just the ingredient for me. It's also a relationship. It's a partnership, and it's transparent and honest.
I suppose it helps if you know the maltsters and you also speak German. You can also read and you can see it. They're not going to schnei you or anything like that. But yeah, it's important to know not just the brewers out there, the home brewers or the small craft brewers, also the consumers, to know that we put in quality ingredients into these beers, and the result is quality beer. Speaking of quality beer, we haven't even. I've just sipped so quickly through this beer.
Yours is empty already.
We haven't even spoken about it, but this lager is delicious. I mean, there's no other word for it. It's just delicious. I would say that it is also. It's the. I suppose I would say it's the most underrated CBC beer. Just. You guys, CBC's been around for, correct me if I'm wrong, about 4 years now. And going on to 5. And obviously when you guys started, you had your amber and your Crystal Weiss, which were these beers which no one had heard of. Then you had your Pilsner, which was world class. And I think the lager took a bit of a back seat, but it's still a underrated, delicious beer. And it's great to see that you're getting recognition now for the South African. Is it the beer trophy? And that's a gold medal. And
that was last year. This year it was, I think, the Pilsner and was it the Pale Ale? It's always something. Look, it's good that you mentioned it. I think it was very important when we started 5 years ago to have that foundation, to have that platform, which with beers people can really rely to. And sure, lager is still the most consumed beer, and it didn't materialize as promised a few years ago that the Pale Ale is going to take over the lager, and I don't think that will happen. Not now and not in 10 years. The lager is still the most easy drinking beer. But to make it different to a commercial lager, and let's be frank, if you put all commercial lagers now in a line here and you have 15 or 20 of them, they more or less look the same, and they will taste more or less the same. So I think a lager, it's very important to showcase your personality and your skills. And for our lager, I only use noble hops from the beginning to the end.
Okay.
Brewers will know that you can fix your IBUs, your bitter units with cheaper high alpha hops. I don't do that. I use for my lager also only noble hops from the Munich region, Tettnang.
So is that
region.
when you speak of noble hops, is that area specific?
Noble hops, just aroma hops. They are higher quality hops. They are far more expensive than bittering hops. But obviously they give that beautiful spiciness of which are typical for German hops, and also that floral notes which you want to have. Surely far more intense in a Pilsner, but in a lager, it's definitely not only a malty lager. It definitely has also its hoppy sides.
Can you, without getting too much, we'll talk about it later, about the definition of craft versus mainstream lagers. But with regards to this lager, is it a complex malt recipe, or is it a simple one?
I would say it's fairly complex. We use also 6 different malt styles in that lager. There is Munich malt, there's also a bit of Vienna malt, there's Curra malt.
What would, just sorry to interrupt, and also again not to jump into it too deeply, but just to give a comparison, what would a mainstream lager, how many malts would they use?
I don't hold their recipes, but they won't go that complicated, and for me it always was important really to show a personality to your lager.
Yeah.
And sure, there's great IBAs and stouts and borders out there where you can also showcase certain skills, but like I said, the most difficult beer where you really can't hide anything, where the thresholds of diacetyl are so sensitive.
Yes.
So I think it's very important to have a good lager, and that is the foundation. That was our foundation, but as you said, we had the Pilsner from beginning, which was a triple gold medal winner, and then you came with the Imperial, which also won platinum in Germany. They speak more about these beers, but they drink more the lager.
Exactly. Well, you mentioned there very quickly, and for listeners might have heard, you mentioned diacetyl, however you want to pronounce it, but that's the butterscotch flavor that you get from, correct me if I'm wrong, it's from a high fermentation temperature. And again, my apologies to people if I'm going to get very technical here. But just to emphasize what you said, it's extremely hard to make a lager, especially as a home brewer. It's hard to hide any flaws, whereas you make a stout or an amber ale. Nothing against people who make stouts or amber ales, but it's a lot easier to hide any flaws because you can get...
It's not only about hiding. A lot of beers don't have to hide anything because there is nothing to hide because they have no flaws. But it is obviously a bottom fermented beer, so the fermentation temperature should not be over 12 degrees. And if you brew with equipment which has not the temperature control, sometimes your temperature run away a little bit, and that obviously affect then later the quality. The only reason why a lot of home brewers, a lot of guys with brewing at home in their garage, brew top fermenting beers because you don't need that temperature control. It's not that they make a shortcut, or it's just you have to brew according to what you have. And
yes.
And I always emphasize that, and I always say also, it's not about the size of your brewing equipment. It's the only, exactly. Yeah. It's the brewing is the only thing where size does not matter.
Yeah.
That didn't sound right either.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not about the brewing equipment you brew on. It's you can have a very modern plant like we do at CBC with the greenest brewery in Africa, and each batch 3,000 liter. It also can be a 20 liter and with buckets and they.
Exactly. Yeah.
I tasted some amazing beers at the last home brewers competition. I think you've been also there. And where two homebrewers clubs fought against each other for the title.
I remember that. That's the level's risen.
Absolutely. I had a Weissbier which I said, I don't believe that you brewed that, and he really did, and it was extremely good.
Yeah, no, it's good to see the level of beers that are homebrewed beers, especially in the country. Well, I'm out of beer, and before we go to the next beer, I think we're going to take a bit of a break. I mean, I could carry on talking about lagers, but we will carry on talking about lagers and beers in South Africa. So let's take a little quick music break, and Wolfgang's bought some snacks, which no doubt I will help myself to. I'll take a photo and post it on social media. Guys, we'll see you in about 1 or 2 songs break. Was that in fact the best song in the world? I have no idea. Welcome back. In case you just joined us, you're listening to Hashtag Beer Time on Two Oceans Vibe Radio, and we're joined in the studio by the head brewer, Cape Brewing Company, CBC, Wolfgang. Welcome back.
Great to be still here.
I'm glad you're still here. So we just had the lager, which was, it was fantastic. You've got could we say it's a brother beer that you've bought? It's the new Striped Horse bottle. Still same beer recipe, but yeah, tell us why you bought this.
Look, let me open the bottle. Striped Horse, yes, it is brewed still at CBC, and it was a lot of fun to work together with them to create their beers. They have also award-winning lager, award-winning Pilsner. They both won gold. The Pale Ale also won. And I think it's just such a good beer which reflect amazing flavor profiles from the hops. CBC also has a Pale Ale in the bottle and in the can, which I brewed, to clarify that, in Sweden. We don't have a can filler at CBC, and that was the whole shebang.
Not yet, eh?
Nah. I think it's still a little bit too early, but the whole exercise was A new can filler costs a substantial amount of money, which we don't have. So I went down to Sweden, brewed it down there, and brought it back. And it's actually, it is a very successful CBC Pale Ale in the can.
So the difference?
It's a completely different recipe. They show different personalities, these pale ales. So depending what hops you use, you also will give it that particular nose. It's an easy drinking pale ale, and I just brought it because I think Striped Horse, it's part of our family and we are part of them. So
I'm trying to think if we've had Striped Horse on the show. If we've had one, we've definitely spoken about it. I think I might have had it on my YouTube channel where I drank the Pilsner, which was actually probably one of my favorite Pilsners around the world. But I think we definitely need to invite the guys from Striped Horse on the show because, as you said, they've got 4 beers now.
Three
beers.
And soon.
Well, there you go. We'll just wink at each other, and because people can't see what we're talking about. But that's good to know. No, this is a delicious beer. I'm picking up a bit of a spicy aroma. Can you tell us a little bit more, about the complexity and why? I mean, have you? Let me think of how to word this. This is a pale ale. Would pale ale be in the German Brewmaster's Guide? You've obviously stuck to the Reinheitsgebot, which is the oldest beer purity law, where it's I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a stereotype, but tell us why you and how you decided to brew the pale ale.
Jesus, was it now a question?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, yes. Yes, purity law, yes, that beer is also brewed according to the purity law. You always have to look, yes, it is a standing beer category, it's a pale ale. Is the Berliner Weiss a standing beer category? Yes, it is. For example, is it according to the Bavarian purity law? No, it is not. But it is a standing beer category. That pale ale, yes, it is purity law. It has a beautiful malt backbone, I think, which is very important to carry through the hops. Spiciness of the hops come partly from Yakima Valley. I do use a little bit hops from George, local hops.
Just a pause. Yakima Valley, that's the hop valley in the States.
One of them. You have Oregon, you have Washington State.
Okay.
But some amazing hops obviously come from there. When they crossbreeded hops, they hunted down more fruits. German hops always been more the floral workhorses of all lager beers and pilsners. We actually brewed now a golden ale also with German hops, which came out amazing. The Germans, they are stubborn and slow, but they
no comment.
But they getting slowly, they act also together, like with the Mandarina Bavaria, which I use for our IBA.
Yeah.
But there are still some hops which just taste like the States. And I put some of these hops in that beer. It's definitely, you will pick up also a little bit grenadilla, a little bit passion fruit, bit of Cape Gooseberry and the old Cascade and Amarillo also rounded to a I think very successful pale ale, and it's just seriously underrated because maybe people had pale ales they did not enjoy it, and now they stay away from it. Give it a chance because I think it's a very cool beer.
Yes, I remember. I'm not sure if it was you or someone else who said. I'm pretty sure it was on a brewery visit where you said no. It took a while for the team to get you out of the pale ale closets, or was it the hop closets?
No, it was you and it was Scott Kelly. Okay. So yes, to push me out of my Bavarian German beer closet, you called it. So I came out of the closet. Yes, I fully admit that I did not brew a lot of imperial IPAs and IPAs 6-7 years ago. No question about that. At the Paulaner time, V&A Waterfront, I started with a Pilsner, which was not in the Paulaner range.
Yeah.
Then we made the Red Weiss, and I made a lot of seasonal beers also already there. But I didn't touch the IBAs, which I only could after that one door opened and the CBC, the Paulaner door closed and the CBC door opened. And I'm very grateful that I could do that. But as you see, I mean, you have the foundation, you have the knowledge, you are more curious than other brewers to see how to blend hops, and because I love hop blending,
Yes.
malt blending, and I think that is a skill which at the end make then a good beer.
Exactly. So you've made an award-winning Imperial IPA, which has been, people know about it all across the globe, which is great. So it shows that you're starting to make these more experimental beers. But is there going to be something else later down the line? Do you think South Africa is ready for what the States are going through with their sour beers, their milkshake beers? Do you think there's market for that in South Africa?
Look, I think the market in South Africa is very open-minded, and not like a lot of other countries. Let's take Germany. There everything is already pre-chewed. They don't bite from the apple anymore. It's already done, put in millipap. So here we have the freedom of choice. We are actually far ahead. And I just came back from a long trip, and I was in Europe, and I was in London, and in Stockholm, and obviously Germany, Munich, hometown Bayreuth, and then over to China, to Shanghai. And look, we are, if you look at us as beer consumers, beer lovers, we are actually far ahead to some. And we are far ahead to Germany, because they only start slowly with a craft beer movement, and you find there a pale ale and maybe an IPA, and the brewery where I learned from my hometown, they are actually one of the main pusher towards craft. And Meisel and Friends, Brauerei Brüder Meisel in Bayreuth, that's where I actually learned my trade.
Okay.
And we are actually fairly ahead of a lot of other countries when it comes to openness. And yes, I think there is room for different beers. I think later we have the opportunity to try one of these specimens. But
Definitely.
Nevertheless, I think every brewer tries to showcase his skills, with something special. And the Imperial IPA, I mean, it is a difficult beer to get right, and I think I did that. And now I already handed over a little bit more to the younger brewers, to my head brewers, to the brewers we have at CBC. And yes, it's Anton, it's Derwald from Tuk Tuk, it's Chris, Siegfried and Sean, these guys.
Quite a big team.
These are all brewers, and Derwald is head brewer from Tuk Tuk, and Anton is head brewer CBC. And what we did, we created a new range. We call it the Brewmaster Reserve. It's a limited edition. And that's where I actually push my brewers to create recipes and to brew beers. And 2 months ago, we released the first beer. It was actually a Dunkel, a Munich Dark Lager, which I would have loved to bring, but it's sold out already since last week.
I remember you gave me a few, and it didn't last long in my house.
I think these guys made me really, really proud. And if I would have stayed now last week in China and I wouldn't have came back to South Africa, I knew and I know that CBC is in good hands. No,
Yes.
they are amazing. They are passionate. They are inspiring, and
that's what you want.
and I'm very proud about them. You know, it's such an amazing team. You know, and you will find that out, and if you go slightly bigger and you reach the size of Darling or CBC, that it's all about the team spirit. It's all about the team, and we're going to release now every 2-3 months a new beer brewed by my guys. Obviously, I have a look, so everything goes in the right direction. And the next one we're going to release very soon is actually, I'm not allowed to tell you yet.
Okay, well, you can tell me off air, then we'll keep it between us.
Now we said we keep it for another 2 weeks a secret.
Okay, then I'm sure we'll try something on the show. But you touched on a few points there, and the one thing which we'll come back to is the team. And CBC's always been about showcasing the team and what a good team it is. I suppose that's a major characteristic of what makes up a craft brewery. We'll get into craft brewery and what you think about that, but that's just something I wanted to point it out. What I did want to come back to is we got into this whole chat about where South Africa is compared to the rest of the world. You've just come back from a 4-week trip. I've just come back from a 2-week trip. I think I went to Canada, the States, you went to Germany and Asia. Sure, I think South Africa is, in some regards, on a good level compared to the rest of the world. But let's talk about where it's not, only because I want to improve on that. The one thing I do want to just point out, and the one thing I did notice with my travels, is that South Africa doesn't have the numbers right now. Like you go to, I went to St. Petersburg in Russia. I went to, obviously New York's a very strong example, but you've just got an intense amount of people on one block or living in one area, and there's just the market. There's just a thirst. The town is thirsty, so there's this massive intake of beer. I feel that South Africa doesn't have that. It's kind of people of, again, a good example is Cape Town people are kind of flaky. They'll drink beer one day, they'll go to wine the next day. But that's obviously a disadvantage for South Africa. But having said that, where do you think South Africa needs to improve in the craft beer scene, in the beer scene or anything? Where are we slipping behind, if you can think of anything?
Look, what I saw that we are really not behind. I think we can be proud what we achieved in such a short time, and we have some amazing beers, some amazing craft beers. Yes, if you can microfilter your beers and or flash pasteurize your beers so they can travel safe and stand safe on a shelf, I think that is a very important thing to do. And I don't want to send beer up to Johannesburg if it is not 100% safe. But having said that, I actually came back and I posted for my last tap takeover on Saturday a little mail to a handful of brewers, and I said, look guys, it's great to be back. We really don't have to hide behind anybody because I think we do an amazing job, because I had a huge amount of really, really bad commercial beers, particularly in Shanghai, really bad ones.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. And I had also quite a lot of bad craft beer standing on shelves for far too long from the States, which would not be able to actually compete with some of our beers.
Okay.
So I actually was very optimistic when I came back, and I thought, hey guys, we are on the
that's good then.
on the right track. Yes, we do have a problem. Not everybody can afford a high quality premium specialty beer or craft beer, however you want to call it. Surely, if you put high quality, expensive ingredients imported with our extra strong ranch.
Yeah.
The most expensive pint was actually 160 rand.
Sure.
And it was so bad. It was a commercial beer, a well-known.
You must have been thirsty.
A well-known huge brand. Look, hey, I'm a master brewer, but sometimes a beer is just a beer, and I say that even as a master brewer, you don't drink a good bottle of Sauvignon Blanc every day or Pinot d'Arche from 1984. So, unfortunately, our market does not allow a broader consumer. Sure, if you go to Australia or to Shanghai and you ask, okay, how many people would be able to afford my beer?
Maybe it is a bigger middle class. Or,
then they would look funny at you and say, what do you mean? Everybody can afford that.
Sure.
Yeah, but not everybody in South Africa can afford that. And
that's very true.
I think that separates a little bit craft, which is more pricey for obvious reasons than a commercial beer. And the other thing, it's education. And I think a lot of breweries, I have to mention Darling also again. I think Jack Black also do a lot of educationals. Devil's Peak starts a new brewery now. I'm not sure. I wasn't there yet.
I still need to go as well.
CBC has a tasting room where we had last year over 100,000 visitors. And I think there you can actually bring very easy a message across. It is quality what you're tasting here, and that's the difference between a lager and a pilsner, and that is a Crystal Weiss, and that is now a fruit beer. And I think it's all about education still, and show people, gives them the confidence and also the trust and the transparency. And we are really a glass brewery. If you've not been out there, visit us at Spice Root and ask for me. I show you around if you invite me for a beer afterwards.
He's the young, handsome-looking chap.
That old guy without hairs and without teeth, that would be me.
I will say that the tasting room at CBC, within Spice Root is the farm. I will say that it is probably one of my favorite things to do, because it is just such an experience. It's like, I don't know, being a kid again and going into your favorite toy store or something, or favorite sweets shop and getting to try all the sweets. I like that you guys are there to educate, and I think that's just what we do need to do, and that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm sitting here. I'm trying to educate the people out there to say that, there's a very big difference between beer and ale. That's still a common question that I get. But if it's an ale, I'm not going to drink it. And I'm like, no, you must drink it for this reason. On that note, this was a good ale. This was a good pale ale. And I'm looking forward to the CBC pale ale in the can. I know that you made a batch last year. Slightly pivoting here, but still on topic. Have you made a new batch?
Yes, we did.
Because I saw some cans arrive the other day somewhere, and they were still.
Yeah, look, we wanted to see, is South Africa, are they open for craft beer in a can?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of guys still have the perception that beer in a can might taste like metal, which is impossible because it's aluminium, it's inert. It's actually the safest way to transport a beer. You have no light influence, you don't have the light struck. For me, it is the best beer you get out of a keg.
Yeah.
Or out of a can. That is a fact. That's the reason you have such a high percentage of craft beers in cans in the States.
Yeah. Because
it just holds longer. Yes, we played around. It's always very difficult to brew a beer on a 3,000 liter plant or 30 hectoliter plant, and then you go up 10 times the size and brew it on a 350 hectoliter plant.
I can imagine.
And you cannot just upsize it. Okay, now we take it times 10.
10, yeah.
That doesn't work really. And it was a mission, and we said we don't want to come really to South Africa with a lager, because I don't want to compete now with all the commercial beers in cans. We wanted to do something more crafty, and I think it has its existence, and it has its sales, it has its friends. And I always have 2 or 3, 4 bags pale ale cans in my fridge. And I had some guys over the weekend. It's quite interesting. And I stuck the fridge full with beer. And I don't say you have to drink that. And I keep them the freedom of choice.
Yeah.
And all pale ale cans actually gone first. So they all went for the cans. So not because I told them. So because it has its status and it has its place. And I think we've been the first one really to do a big commercial. I know that Devil's Peak had some cans, and you have the can filler guys traveling around and also do some cans. But okay, we brought in 40-foot containers full with cans.
Yes.
And I think it was a good exercise, and we won't stop doing it. So we might thinking about proceeds it. But
well,
you will see.
I'm a big fan of cans. As I've seen, actually, when I was in Russia, funnily enough, very few cans. Also, lots of bottles. States and Canada they're just cans everywhere. So I'm a big fan of the can. I'm looking forward to more people in South Africa adopting that use or that method of packaging. Obviously, I understand a can machine is a hell of a lot more expensive than a bottling line. Bottling is just what you can do by hand, cap, easy. Right, I think we warrant another little break. I'm getting a little bit peckish, and we've been speaking at length now, which is great. In case you do not know what's going on, this is #Beer Time with T-Bone Troy. We're in the studio with Wolfgang Kudel from CBC, Cape Brewing Company. We've had the lager from CBC. We've just had the Striped Horse, the Pale Ale, which is delicious. And we're going to have some few sneaky beers coming up after the break. So do join us again after this little music break. We will see you shortly. Ciao, ciao. It's almost 1 o'clock on a Tuesday. You listen to me, T-Bone Troy, and it's #Beer Time. We're joined in the studio by head brewer at Cape Brewing Company, Wolfgang Kudel. Wolfgang, welcome back.
Welcome. Welcome too.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you very much for the snacks. You are definitely the favorite guest of #Beer Time. I mean, we did have Murray Turner from the Festival of Beer, who also bought some of his homemade biltong, but you've one-upped him. You've made your own cheese. Just tell us a little bit about this cheese you've made. It's like you said it's a German style. What is it?
We call it actually a Oberste. That's a Bavarian cheese spread. So you use, there are 1,000 recipes, but I use my mother's recipe. So she takes a brie and a camembert, and then you dig a hole in the garden and throw them in and leave them for 2 months. No, I'm just kidding. And some butter. And you squeeze it up with a fork or something.
Yeah. Already I'm sold, but yeah.
And then you add German cardamom, pepper, salt, paprika. I use smoked paprika, spicy paprikas. That's the reason you're getting thirsty. And then I brought some pretzels from our bakery.
Oh.
And that's it.
For those of you who are listening, who are obviously every show you have to listen to me drink the beers and best try and describe them. But I must just say that these snacks we're having here, I'm lost for words.
And the biltong, I must be the only one making biltong with Karoo dust from Carl and Greg.
Greg and Carl from Beer Country would be very happy to hear that.
And they usually always fix my wife with their Garudas because she loves them and she loves the Garudas, I think.
I tell you what, you could put that Karoo dust on pretty much anything.
Yeah, on a chocolate bar.
Yeah, you can even put it on your wife or your girlfriend if you want. It's that tasty. Moving along very quickly and swiftly, Wolfgang, we're going to try some new beers. And when I say new beers, these were launched this year. And I'm glad we started drinking the lager, then the pale ale. We're now drinking the new fruit beers from CBC. Is that the best way to describe them?
It's actually a beer mixed drink. All right, let's start from the beginning. Look, the only person I think goes every year back to Germany and to Berlin is most probably me, because I do that every year because I have friends in Berlin, and there we drink a Berliner Weiss, and we all know Berliner Weiss is a kettle sour beer. There are some amazing kettle sour beers out there, so I don't have to brew another kettle sour beer. Okay. So I'm not into kettle sours. I'm also not really in porters and stouts because there are some great stouts out there. So they also want to sell their beer. So you don't have to cover actually every spectrum of beer categories.
Sure.
Just stay what you know best. And I thought I want to play around a little bit. We neglected the female beer drinking market. Yeah, if you don't like IPAs, then don't drink one, you know. And I think that inspired me a little bit, and I wanted to do something different. So what we had was a triple gold medal award winner, Crystal Weiss, which is already a very dry beer. Mm-hmm. It's obviously not sour, but it is a very dry beer. Highly hopped, as much as you can hop a Weiss beer.
Weiss beer, yeah. So I know that the Weiss beer is, for people listening, it is the lowest hopped beer.
Yeah. And so since I'm not wanted to make a Berliner Weiss, I developed a Berliner Weiss syrup.
Oh, okay.
So traditional, the flavor profiles of Berliner Weiss are either raspberry, then it is woodruff, that is a little flower, fruity flavor profile. It does not grow in Africa, and the other one is peach. Mm-hmm. So
we've got the raspberry one now.
So you have the beautiful color.
It's incredible. Do you know what? I don't know if obviously when you taste beer, when you smell beer, you get taken back to a childhood memory. And this, to me, we used to have this ice cream parlor in South Africa. I don't think we have it anymore. It used to be known as Milky Lane, and they would serve chocolate sundaes and whatnot. And the one syrup that they had there was a strawberry syrupy type. And this I'm transported back to 6 years old drinking or eating this. But this is obviously more of a raspberry. You can actually smell the pip. The tartness. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, it is very tart. So we developed with a company that Berliner Weiss syrups. The first Berliner Weiss syrups actually developed in South Africa. We went raspberry and peach flavor. We couldn't get that woodruff right, so it also would have been a green beer. I mean, that would have been leaned a little bit too far out of the balcony. So it is actually a beer mixed drink. 97% of Crystal Weiss and 3% of that natural raspberry syrup. So you don't add a lot of...
That's an amazing equation, the fact that you've got 97% beer.
It's 97% beer. And 3% of that...
That's unbelievable. I would almost go one step further to say I don't believe you, but I do believe you now. But it's amazing how much punch you get. I suppose you wouldn't want anything more. If it's 10% syrup, it would just be too...
It would be too sweet. And look, it's a nice balance between sweet and sour. And look, we launched it beginning of winter. It's actually a summer beer, and obviously we wanted to sort out all toothing problems, because I thought that this is a beer which can get very big. And a good example is our tasting, where people come, taste the beers. We have a range of 8 beers in a master tasting, which include that flavored beers, and we gave the girls, particularly the non-beer drinking girls, gave them little samples of the raspberry and the peach Crystal Weiss, and they all loved it. We actually increased our sales in the tasting about 25%. Can you imagine that?
That's amazing. So you've almost tackled another market. You it's still a beer, but you are now kind of pivoting this beer and aiming it towards the cider drinkers, the Kool-Aids, Smirnoff Spin. There is that market out there, but now this is the gateway. This is what people can say, oh wow, this is a beer. What else is behind that spectrum? What else is in the beer market? So I think that's clever how this is going to attract the non-beer drinker. And I say this in inverted commas because people think beer, I'm not going to drink that. But if they have something like this, it is a bit of a wow factor. I can't believe this is beer. So that's what I foresee.
I think that is what craft is about. You know, we talking about independence, we talking about passion, we talking about creativity, we talking about, can I do that? And when I was asked, Wolfgang, you bring according to the purity law, how can you do that? And I replied, because I can.
Yeah.
I'm independent.
Yes, exactly.
So why I shouldn't be able to do that? And I don't care if it was shot down in flames by other brewers. It is what it is. It is a beer mixed drink. It is a better alternative than all that alcopops, which are full of sugar, and that product is not, because it is 97% beer. And look, we are standing behind that beers, and ask some of our girls who never liked beer, and then their boyfriends, after they bought a case of Amber Weiss, they had to buy also a case of raspberry or peach Weiss. That's how we increased actually our sales figures, because we never sold a lot of beer to the girls. And we all know a happy wife result in a happy life.
You don't have to say that to me. I know exactly what you're saying.
It keeps them happy too.
Yes, if I'm sure my wife is listening, but dinner will be ready, and you'll have your raspberry Weiss.
And by the way, I brought some pretzels for you.
We're still on air. What's the alcohol? It's still the same as the Weiss?
It's 5 volume %.
Okay, good. No, so it's actually delicious. This is going to go down well. I really hope this is a good summer beer for the upcoming season. I'm sure it will be. Now, we touched on it earlier. You mentioned it before. CBC's logo is independent since day one, and I know that you've pushed on this. CBC has always pushed on this, the fact that they're independent. And you've gone one step further. You've launched this new campaign, and I've only seen snippets of it. And from what I know, it's this new Be Independent campaign. I've seen some things coming up on social media, some Instagram, some Twitter. It's all about Be Independent. Could you maybe just elaborate on that? What is CBC up to?
I think one of the priorities in the whole craft beer movement is independence. I mean, that is what defines actually craft. You need to be independent. You mustn't be part of one of these massive, huge commercial groups which are out there. I mean, they're getting, there's not a handful anymore. I think at the end you have only 2. And that's the reason it was so important for us to say, yes, independence and be independent. These are so strong words. It's a little bit like, how the craft beer movement started. It was actually the freedom of choice of the people. They've been tired of the commercial beers, always the same, and it was pre-chewed beer, you know. It was nothing cool. It was nothing inventive.
Lowest denominator.
It was very quick produced, you know. Who ask a commercial brewery? I mean, I put in a 3,000 liter tank of Imperial IPA. I put hops for 25,000 rand for dry hopping.
Sure.
I mean, if you would tell us that a commercial director of a brewery, they would fire you immediately.
Get out.
That you are useless. Get the hell out.
Or the result is an world-renowned award-winning beer. So.
And that is why we are very proud about that campaign and our influences. And they starting visiting us, and we spend time together.
Well, let me go over these influences. And this is again what I love about maybe not just CBC or breweries. What I love about good companies, to get a bit of a business side to the show, is that you start to include other people from other aspects of different industries, and you rope them in. What that does, it introduces you to a whole other audience or markets that was perhaps not visible, or they didn't notice you or didn't see you. So I love that. I love companies, especially in the let's talk about beer. You get some breweries out there who I've got a beer at home who every label that they get a different artist, a new and upcoming artist, to design their label. So every beer that they bring out is a different, new, funky label. It's an original artwork. I could go on about artwork and beer labels and cans, but let's get back to this. Let's talk about who CBC is working with. And I've got a list of names here. You might recognize them. I'm just going to go through them quickly. CBC are collaborating with the following individuals: Spook Matambo, who is a music artist, producer, and rapper; Boskasi, a talented singer and songwriter. We've got Marty Lunt, a creative designer, owner, creator of MAAK surfboards. We've got Diantha Akari, designer, reinventing the way people look at sneakers and design. We've also got the Hevels Fantasties. I'm sure we've all heard of them. They're a well-known South African band. And then we've got Gabrielle Kannemeyer, a creative director and stylist, taking fashion to the next level. So you've definitely chosen people who are, I suppose, get into the top of their game. They are independent in their own rights and creating something that they love. But yeah, I mean, we were speaking off air. You've managed to meet some of them and chat. I mean, can you tell us what's?
I'm actually, for me as a master brewer of CBC, not talking about the brand itself. I think it's so cool to be associated with them. You know, these are free spirits. You know, they are artists. They are also Handwerker. You know, craft is translated nothing else than Handwerk. I think you have that word also in Afrikaans.
Yes.
So in German it's called Handwerk. And these guys they all took, when we look at Matrix and you had the choice between the blue and the red pill, they all took the right pill, you know, and they all free.
Yes.
They are not part of a matrix, and I think that was important for us.
Sure, I need that pill, yeah.
To take the right pill and to be on that platform together with us, and we always did that. In the beginning, we saw also that other Handwerk can be part of our craft segment, mm-hmm. You know, can be some cool Biltong made with Garudas, for example.
By Greg and Cole.
And now it's so cool, and we will get so amazing time with them.
Yes.
And I think Marty was one of the first ones came out and sniffed me out, and I sniffed him out, and it was such a cool afternoon, such an amazing person, and they are all like that, and they are choosing because they just fit in our picture because the independence is so important for all of us.
This is not the first time that CBC has incorporated some local artists. I remember you're going to have to refresh my memory because obviously I forget a lot. But you had some artists, or one of the things I saw last year was someone was a hat maker, and then they got some of the beer, and then they were able to use the color of the beer to change the color of their hats, and they use it as paints. And
we called it Graft Collab, and we did it 2 years in a row.
Okay.
And I think out of the Graft Collabs, the Be Independent campaign was born, because we still move on with grafters, and we just evolve too. So it just going forward.
I've also got a note here. I see that three of the people we spoke about, Spook, Boskasi, and the Heerwils Fantasties are working on a song. So that's going to come a little bit later, but that's also awesome. So now maybe we'll see Wolfgang with turntables.
No, I won't.
Any instruments that we can see?
No, I started then, and like the CBC Pale Ale campaign, I found something in the mountains.
I remember that. It was.
It's very funny,
especially when you're listening.
Look, at least I don't take myself too serious, and I think that is also a very important point. Don't take yourself too serious sometimes.
Just to wrap that bit up, if people want to learn a little bit more, they can go onto the Cape Brewing Co. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They can also go to their websites. You can also register for the newsletter. So just go to www.capebrewing.coza. I always make that mistake of searching for Cape Brewing. I type in CBC, but you get all these other American companies. But it has to be Cape Brewing. Right? That's just something for people to remember. I'm very excited to see what's happened in that regard. And I think this is a good time to move on to our next beer. This beer was delicious, by the way. I think more people need to try that. That was the Raspberry Weiss. So now, clean glass.
So let's come to the next one. That would be our Peach Crystal Weiss.
Yeah.
So color, nice and
also beautiful color.
Peachy.
No, so how? So this is also. Would you say this is made exactly the same technique?
Yeah, we really just use our Dribble Award-winning Crystal Weiss in the production. And then we dose our syrup. So the same batch can be normal Crystal Weiss, can be afterwards Peach Crystal Weiss, and then Raspberry Crystal Weiss. Like I said, the only one we didn't tackle was the Woodruff, the Waldmeister. Mm-hmm. But who knows? We might work on other things.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll let the listener's imagination get away with that one. I'm also trying to pick up what kind of small aromas. Obviously, this is a peach. I definitely get like a peached iced tea, particularly when I was in the United States, and they used to have après at ski times, and they used to make their own peach iced tea. And this, I'm definitely getting it. But this smells delicious. You could almost call this. I would go one step further and say that this is very similar to your Amber Weiss, because you have your Crystal Weiss, then you've got your Amber Weiss. Your Amber Weiss has always been the fruitier, the bubblegum, chewy kind of Weiss beer that you've had in your baskets. This is now kind of also again like these are proper fruit beers, but the Amber Weiss has just been. It was always your.
Yeah, it was number one workhorse. Was the Hefeweizen, was the Amber Weiss, and as we know, if you look at Hefeweizen, you have three styles. Either you have a neutral one, you have a yeasty one, or you have that banana, that fruity one, and that Amber Weiss was always a little bit like a meal. It was a substantious beer.
It's a breakfast beer, hey?
It was always a breakfast beer, and for us, beer is still liquid bread, and so. And the funny thing, if you work in Germany in a brewery, and at 9 o'clock you have your little tea break, yes, you have a pint. There's no question.
Amazing.
That
Unbelievable.
in front of the director, you
Yes.
have a pint.
Even if you work in heavy machinery, you just get
It's
one.
also some kind of beer independence, right?
Yes.
They can have a beer because they can.
that just says to me, you've obviously grown up with beer, and there's a different culture. It's a lot stronger over there. Like, yeah, to be able to drink beer at 9. I mean, I drink beer at 12 o'clock every Tuesday. So I suppose I'm one step behind you in trying to get.
Yeah, look, it's a huge responsibility, particularly towards the younger generations. And look, I think that alcopops they are very dangerous because you really underestimate the intake of alcohol, because some of them drinks really like lemonade and. With around 6 volume% alcohol, it's a massive. It's stronger than most of all beers you will have in the market, and you just underestimate it. And I would say that kind of direction, at least you know you drink a beer.
Yes.
And you're aware of the alcohol impact. And the last thing is what we do, support drink and driving. We are strict, very strict, and when it comes to that, that is not something we make jokes about. It is dead serious because the life of our kids are important to us.
I'm also a big
don't drink and drive.
A big person a big advocate of safe driving. There's just no joke about it, as you said. You need to be safe rather than sorry. I had a question now. I was going somewhere. I was going to say something quite profound, but then my mind wandered.
The Alzheimer struck again.
Exactly. It'll come back to me. Well, let's just go back to this beer then, because it is delicious.
You see also the head retention is not affected, so it does not look just like some kind of apple juice with color, like some other funny mixed beers you will find out there. I think it's still, even if you do something like that, it can be high quality. And it is high quality. We invested a lot, and it took actually 1.5 years to get that Berliner Weiss syrup right, to be natural and to have natural colors, etc. So it was quite something we put some energy behind, and I think brewers should not stop be creative and enforce the beers they brew to a market which might evolved already and want something different. So I think we have to be open-minded and not force down the beer I, as a brewer, has to be forced down on my whole clientele.
I always push for that on the show if there are new brewers or home brewers listening. You shouldn't brew what the market wants, or some could argue, no, well, look, it's a financial game, but I tend to think that you need to brew something that you're passionate about, that you really enjoy, that you want. If you want it, there's a small percentage, a market out there who also wants it, and that is enough to be successful. What do you think South Africa needs? More beers like this, more fruit beer? It doesn't have to be a fruit beer, but do you think South Africa needs to really push away from the
mainstream beers?
For lack of I say this every show, but for lack of a better word, the lager beers or the simpler beers. Does South Africa need more experiments, more beers like this?
I think, what we started, when winter started, actually, 4 or 5 months ago, we started with the tap takeovers, that we invited fellow brewers to CBC to showcase their beers. Just to use our CBC platform on a weekend, we have at least 1,000 people coming through tasting beers, and so they could actually tell 1,000 people about their beers, let them try their beers, hand out business cards, hand out information, who's the brewer, what beers, what styles we brew, and that got such a dynamic, such a movement, and I tasted some amazing beers at CBC by inviting just every month 5 brewers. And look,
It's quite a good trick, just to invite all the brewers to your place.
yeah, to get free beer. the best beer is still free beer, right?
Yes,
Troy.
exactly. Cheers.
And I think we have said already, to answer your question. There is a variety of beers brewed by some also smaller brewers, where I was really, really impressed about the quality. And that's the reason when I came back from my trip, I honestly could say, the grass is not greener on the other side. We have an amazing movement going on here. We have amazing brewers. We get along with each other. It's not that you read every week that one craft brewer hit another craft brewer with a stolen beer cake on his head or something like that.
Not yet, though.
No, so I think that we have that.
Yeah. No, it's. I will agree with you there. That we're definitely in a very exciting phase in the South African beer markets, where I still think there's a lot of growth. Yeah, let me speak English. There's still a lot of growth to happen, and there's a lot of exciting new things to happen with beers. I mean, sure, we'll still get some new breweries coming along. Some will go away, but at the end of the day, our beer level is going to get better. We're going to come up with more exciting beers. People are going to start experimenting. Sour beers, fruit beers, barrel-aged beers. Mix in different things in your beer. So yeah, there's it's a very exciting stage that we're in now, to be in South Africa and to be involved in anything beer related. So.
And then, by the way, with that tap takeover, before I forgot to mention that I started just around us, the closest, and we will proceed with the tap takeover 2018 for next winter.
Good.
So I will go through everybody. Nobody is left out, and if they would like to come, they definitely going to be invited.
Well, you will be busy.
And one day, I think we should come together, and all should have a huge festival with a stand where they can sell beers. And I think that we're going to plan till 2020. We should have that done at Spice Road, and we all come together.
You've got my votes. Flip, I'll help you organize that. I'm there. I'm keen. Can actually do it
free of charge. Thank you.
Yes.
No, I take it.
I can just come. I'll come and crash at your place. Let's take a quick break. We've got 2 really cool songs lined up, and then we've got one more beer which I've bought from the States. And hello to our listeners. I'm back for our last segments on this very fine Tuesday. It is #Beer Time with me, T-Bone Troy, on Two Oceans Vibe Radio. Joined in the studio, in case you've just joined us, we're in the studio with Wolfgang from CBC, and we're having a cracker of a time. I can't believe how quickly the show's gone. We've tried the CBC Lager, we've tried the Striped Horse Pale Ale, and then we've just had the 2 new fruit beers from CBC. It's the peach and the raspberry Vice beers. Obviously 2 different beers, but I think those are going to be quite popular over the next few warm summer months. Wolfgang, I've been saving this beer for you. I'll probably get in trouble if I didn't mention that this is actually my wife's beer. This was given to her as a birthday gift. She got given 2, so she said, no, you can have 1. So in a way, she's almost allowing us to drink this. So I will say thank you to my wife for letting us drink this. This is all the way from Dogfish Head Brewery in the States. It is a Sea Quench Ale, a session sour. It says here it's blissfully brewed with lime juice, lime peel, black limes, and sea salt. So this is, I mean, through and through their logo of off-censored ales for off-censored people. Are you a fan of the salted beers?
I let you know after I had a sip,
Well, I actually did some research on Gose style beers, and I found out that Gose is an old German style beer. It's been around for a while, and yeah. So let's see what this is like. Whew. Smells pretty decent. Okay, that was a bit too aggressive. Okay, so Dogfish is one of the well-known breweries around the world. Let's look at it. It's quite light in color. So I'm already expecting a bit of a saltiness, but a very puckering lime kick. Ooh. Can taste the salt. So, if you're not used to drinking,
You make funny faces.
well, it is sour. So, it's if you're not used to this, you're not expecting it. It is going to be. It's like getting kicked in the balls, I suppose. It is very. It's got a very nice, not overwhelmingly, but a very nice sour note to it. And it's incredibly moreish, because now I've just finished that sip and I want more. But yeah, this is. Could we compare this to the other beers we've had today? I mean, it is I'd imagine that they would have made a base style beer, and then they've added the limes, the fruits, the salts. You look like you want to say something.
No, I don't want to say. Can you please have another sip? It makes you look like somebody shoot your kneecap off.
Oh yeah, it does have a. What do you call it? That little.
Yeah, but funny enough, after the second sip, third sip, it reminds me completely different beer style on the Bamberger Rauchbier.
Rauchbier.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a smoked version of our beer, which comes from a region close to my hometown, only 20 kilometers away.
Okay.
And that is a beer where you need to have a couple. The first sip, it's like smoked bacon, and the second one is like double smoked bacon, and then you get used to it. And after the second pint, it actually tastes amazing. But I think the nightmare of every brewer is a sour beer, and one of the to make it right, to really get it right. One of the also most difficult beers. It's not only a lager; it's also a sour beer. To get that sourness right, so it is still
intentionally sour your beer.
Intentionally sour, and still make it a drinkable and enjoyable beer.
Yeah.
I mean, it is actually quite cool.
Yeah. No, I must say it's taken me a while to get into the notion of drinking a sour beer, but now I've been lucky enough to have a few in the last few weeks, and I must say I'm hooked. I'm a fan. I know that I think it's Devil's Peak who have a separate kind of small brewery to make sour beers, but yeah, it looks like the movements of the American styles are slowly making their way into South Africa, which is good to see. But can you maybe just get me up to date with the Gose style? Is that whereabouts? Do you know anything really about it? And all I know is that it originated from Germany. It's 50% malt, and it's also made with salt water, and in true American style, they've revived, or homebrew style, they've revived all these old recipes. So I think that's one that's become quite popular
But it's always going to be a niche market beer, and that is not a beer you're going to have a 4-pack in your fridge.
Yeah.
You're going to have one and taste it with your friend, and you will highly likely go back having a beer according to the style you usually drink.
Yeah, I'd imagine, Dogfish Head, if they made these cans, they would have probably made one batch, canned it, and then let it be kind of thing. That's what I imagine. They would have had a lot. The bigger sellers would have had a bit more attention put into that. Beers that are consumed a little bit more at a higher rate.
Look, I think we do something like that, and you guys surely heard about Tuk Tuk in Franschhoek.
Yes.
Where we have Derwald appointed our head brewer, and it's a 2.5 hectoliter Kasper Scholz, all unfiltered, unpasteurized, who won, by the way, also two gold or 2 medals.
Okay, yes.
Just now at the
Beer Trophy.
Beer Trophy, which is very cool for unfiltered, unpasteurized beer to compete actually with us bigger guys. And there they do a lot of small batches where we have also a lot of test batches done. Actually a cool thing. Check it out. And he did some beers in wine barrels already. That is actually.
I had his coffee pale ale the other day. I was completely blown away.
No, crazy. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that to be in a beer, but
yeah, he took. I think he's the only one who took it at the Matrix story. He took both bills. He accelerates sometimes quicker than I can think. Yeah, but we need that. I believe in the younger generation, and they will hopefully carry me through too if I retire. So I still have $350 a month
exactly
to live on.
And someone to push you around.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, we all take turns. But I did want to. You touched on something there, which just it sparked another memory. So CBC is the Tuk Tuk is the little brother of CBC.
Yes.
Now you've obviously got into this restaurant. It's a Tuk Tuk restaurant with a brewery inside. It reminded me of what Devil's Peak have just done. They've called a restaurant out in Belleville. It's called Devil's Peak de Oudeskier. I was there on the weekend. Are we going to see more of that? Where we have breweries, let me say that correctly, breweries, finding different allocations, different spots, different key points around around the country, to say, like, this is our restaurant, we'll only serve this stuff here.
Look, unfortunately, or fortunately, I think that is a trend which I recommended already quite some time ago, to survive. At the moment, our market is to such an extreme saturated. And we have very good beers there, and we have high quality beers out there, and we are in a recession. At the moment, we get undermined by the giants fighting each other in a price war, throwing out damn cheap beer. Okay, commercial beer, but if you only have 100 rand in your pocket and you can get 18 bottles, or you get 6 bottles of a high quality product, that is for some guys a difficult choice to make.
Sure. I think we spoke about this off air, and I wanted us to talk about it a little bit more on air. My kind of belief or argument is that I'm a type of person, if I had $100 in my pockets, I'm not even going to waste my time drinking quantity over quality. If a beer costs, if I can get one beer with that 100 rand, and it's I know that it's a good quality and I'm going to enjoy it, I'll probably get it. Maybe I'm a bit of a very small market, but I like to think that the craft beer consumer, and that's anyone who's had more than one, who's had it on a second seating who's had more than 2 occasions where they've had craft beer. I think that's my belief is that they are educated and that they know better, and that's sure if it does come down to there will be occasions where there will be it will be a price specific kind of occasion, but I do believe that they are educated and that they know what quality is, and like a craft beer taster, they will experiment and they'll taste different things. I know for me, I've tasted Budweiser. I've tried it now, but I'll probably never go back to it. You know, I'll stick to some other stuff, the stuff that I like. But it's all about, I think we mentioned it again, and I'm going slightly off topic, about having the freedom to choose. But again, I'll say it again, my belief is that the consumer is educated. That small market that we have, and it's that small market that we need to kind of develop, educate, grow. And we can open, there could be a whole nother debate, a whole nother show about this. But that's just my kind of hope.
Yeah, no, so are ours. I think that's the reason we decided to keep the beers in South Africa. We could export, let's say, a huge amount of volume to wherever, but I think it would have been unfair towards our craft supporters who actually created us. It was not us, you know. We put out a brand and we put out some award-winning beers, but that means not that you have a successful beer and a successful brand. You need the consumer, and he have to believe in you. He have to believe in your transparency and in your quality, and they did that. I mean, they accelerated us in the last 5 years to one of the bigger craft breweries in South Africa.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call us the biggest one. I don't think so. But that's on a other debate. But look, I think we did the right thing to keep the beers in South Africa and trust our potential clientele and our fans out there. And I think that makes us proud too. You know, that we go hand in hand and that we have a vision. But for some guys, it just get a bit narrow and tight. And if you would have a place where you have to put your beer on a tap, and there's not a lot of tap space out there either. So just imagine you would be a cool brewer and you make amazing beer, and you make the highest award-winning beer in the world at the moment here in South Africa. You wouldn't be able to sell it because you can't put it on a shelf because there's no shelf space.
I said it to all the new brewers. You might make the best beer in the world, but how are you going to sell it?
Yeah, and
if it's sitting in your warehouse.
That's the reason we need the support structure from our fans out there to go out and visit places and try them out and tell them honestly what they think about their beers, and if it is great, you know, praise, and if it is not so great, you know, correct them and tell them, you know, that wasn't right. It shouldn't have been on a shelf because otherwise it brings down the whole category. So we need to have good beers out there, and our fans need to be objective. And also straightforward, you know. It was great.
As a business owner, that's what you'd want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Honest feedback, yeah.
Now you want feedback. It doesn't matter if it is positive or negative. You know, that's what most probably keeps us alive or let us die.
Yeah. Speaking of keeping it alive, I'm going to try and segue as best as possible. But we've got a few more minutes of the show left, and there's something that I desperately, absolutely had to talk about. Obviously, it's quite apt that we have a German brewmaster on the show today, or during the course of October. October in the beer calendar is probably one of the most important months, namely because of Oktoberfest. And it's, again, one of my favorite times of the year, and I know it's also your favorite time of the year. You get to dust out the old lederhosen. But CBC have their own Oktoberfest, which I understand from a traditional point of view, it's actually held at the end of September in Bavaria, in Germany, for some strange reason. But here we're going to have it in October, which I'm very excited about. It's at the end of this month, could you maybe just tell the wonderful listeners what to expect? Will they see you in Lederhosen?
No, I think everybody should try to avoid that to see me in Lederhosen. Yes, we're going to have a 2-day Oktoberfest on the 28th and 29th. We brewed 9,000 liter Oktoberfest beer, which will be bottled and available that day. We're going to have a Umber band. We're going to have Eisbein, sausages, and sauerkraut. So the whole shebang. But for me, it's nearly something we have every day.
Every day. Yeah.
And no, but it's cool. I'm going to
have another excuse.
squeeze my 200 pounds in my lederhosen. No, it's not that. That we enjoy that. It is something. It came with tradition, and it was my heritage. I brewed Oktoberfest beer at Paul Honor in that time, and then coming from Shanghai via Singapore, Philippines, back to Germany, and then to South Africa. And look, like I'm more South African than I'm German anymore. But it's in your blood, and
yes.
When you hear the Umber music, I think
head starts popping.
Yeah, you get that funny goosebump feeling.
What's I mean, I know what to expect in terms of beer, but I know that you make a very special once a year kind of batch of beer. Is it one batch? But it's
actually 3 batches.
3 batches of Oktoberfest beer, because you need to, I suppose, the demand is there. Am I correct in saying this is even more intense of a malt bill recipe? You add up to, I heard something like 10 different types of malt?
Yeah, no, it's a little bit like the Harvest Lager. And this year, my head brewer, Anton Trollip, actually he worked my old Oktoberfest recipes, and I think with his team of brewers, they made it their own.
Sure.
I had a little sip from the tank. I think it's very, very cool.
As you're allowed to.
And very, very traditional. Look, luckily enough, I'm the only one who is still paid for drinking beer. And I seriously looking forward to have it on tap that day, and surely for another 2 weeks or 3 weeks we're going to have the beer on tap. I think there's going to be a couple of selected places where you will get the CBC Oktoberfest beer on tap too.
Well, it is certainly one of my favorite styles of beer, and every year I really look forward to it. And every year when you run out, I get a little bit down, but I look forward to the next year. Well, I suppose we're coming up to the end of the show. I can't believe how quickly it's gone. I say that every show. I suppose when you have all this beer in front of you, the show does go quite quickly. Wolfgang, is there anything else that you want to talk about, or anything else that you want to mention? I know that every time we speak, you always you praise the team that works behind you or that's in front of you, wherever. But CBC does have a great ethos, and I applaud you guys for that, for showing that it's not just a one-man show. It's definitely it's a team effort, and I think that's what's so great about CBC is that everyone who, when you walk into that brewery, they're always just so enthusiastic, and they just, I suppose they're like me, they just love beer.
Look, I think you're quite right. It's all about the team spirit. It's all about the love and passion, which you only can plant the seed, and that plant grew really successfully, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of job satisfaction, really. And I would like to say thank you to the guys. You usually always forget, it's the guys on the on-con, off-con, It's not only the beer production. We can brew the best beer, but the beer still need to brought out to the market, to all the guys taking care of the taps, trying to educate and teach.
Education on all levels.
On all levels,
yeah.
educate, the barmans, to have that perfect pour, to bring the beer out in a perfect clean glass and in the right look. And I think there are millions of people you can thank you out there. You know, all the bar owners who look at quality. And look, last but not least, I have to say thank you to all our craft beer supporters, and I'm not only talking about CBC beer supporters. I'm talking about in general. Support us, help everybody, help the small brewers around, help the big brewers, you know, see us as a family, and always be straightforward. If something you think is not right, we are very open to all of that, and please keep on supporting us, and we want to grow, you know, everybody. We want to have more craft brewers here, and the younger generations take over and brew new beers, and we only can do that with you. Without your support, we're all going to die. And you will have only 2 brand of beers.
No, we don't want that. Wolfgang, thank you very much. Guys, if you are listening and you want to find out more, or if you're not yet following them on social media, I suggest you do, because they've got a lot of cool things happening. I will definitely be at the Oktoberfest at the end of this month. And also, I'm having my Brewing the Republic beer sale on Thursday, where I do actually have a few more cases of the CBC Pale Ale, which I must admit, I've kind of been hoarding it and hoping that no one would buy it, but I'm going to have to actually sell it this Thursday. So if you want to get some really good beer at a really good price, you can come on down to Banana Jam from 5 p.m. this Thursday, where we're going to have, it's essentially going to be 15 Rand a beer, which is just ridiculous. Wolfgang, again, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
It's always great to have you here. I'm sure next time we'll be having a beer at CBC. And to all the listeners at home, thank you very much. We will see you guys next week, same time, same place. Ciao, ciao.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening, guys and girls. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Just search for #BeerTime. That's #BeerTime written out in full. Hope you enjoyed the show, and check you next time. Cheers.